What do you say, everybody? With Kyle Henderson, I'm Mick Gillespie, and we're here because of the breaking news. As many of you have already heard, Nick Saban has again tested positive for COVID-19, but this time he's actually showing symptoms, and they're not going to challenge those results. I bring in Kyle Henderson. He's the managing editor of BamaInsider.com. Kyle, what's the latest on this? And I know we also have Nick Saban's teleconference as well.
Sure. Well, good morning to everybody, and thank you very much for joining us. Please hit the thumbs up button, like, and subscribe. The latest from Tuscaloosa is this. Nick Saban started having symptoms, I guess, yesterday, according to his teleconference, which we'll play some sound bites of in just a minute. Was notified today that he did test positive for COVID-19. And since he does have those symptoms, they're not going to challenge those results. As you remember last time, before the Georgia game, I mean, he will not be coaching in the Iron Bowl, which is monumental news. And I think it's going to be national news. It already is. I think I saw it on ESPN already. So what does this mean going forward? I think a lot of people want to know, is he going to coach? So number one, he's not going to coach this weekend at the Iron Bowl. I know it sounds like you might already know that, but that is a question. The second thing is, who is going to take Nick Saban's place as head coach against Auburn? And that will be Steve Sarkisian. Steve Sarkisian is the assistant head coach, you could call him, here at the University of Alabama, currently serving as the offensive coordinator, highest paid assistant in the entire country, making $2.7 million. And as you know, Steve Sarkisian has been a head coach before coming to Alabama. He was at USC. He was at Washington. He was an offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. So a lot of experience and a real key to Alabama's continuity on the offensive side of the ball. Of course, we've all talked about how Alabama's defense has somewhat found themselves following that second half of the Georgia game. I know we talked about that last night during our show. And it's crazy that we're sitting here talking about Nick Saban missing the Iron Bowl, and it seems like every single year when we go into the Iron Bowl, there's something added to it. Now this one will be the first one since he's been coaching without Nick Saban versus Gus Malzahn in the Iron Bowl.
Yeah, and the other part of this too is, I've talked about this before. If you're a young person, the chances of you dying from this are really small. But when you get up into that age range where Nick Saban is, and 70, 75, it's very dangerous. So at the same time, we're both thinking, and I know all of you out there as well, about Nick Saban's health. And so far, and he's going to talk in the teleconference, and we're going to play that here in a couple of minutes. Thoughts and prayers to him that this is something that he'll be able to deal with and survive from, because it is a really serious thing for older people, no doubt about it. And it's kind of scary in that aspect.
And I want to add this as well. And if you're just joining us, I know there's some confusion, so we'll put a banner on the bottom. But Nick Saban tested positive for COVID-19, and he will not be coaching in this weekend's game against Auburn. Now, this is official. This came in from the University of Alabama. We also have some sound that we're going to play from this morning's SEC teleconference. So if you're just joining us, Nick Saban tested positive for COVID-19. And just as Mick was saying, I think it's very serious when you start to look at the age group that Nick Saban is. I mean, closing in on the 70-year-old mark, which will be next year. And you look to other guys that maybe he did come in contact with. Now, according to Saban, he was by himself. There's no other coaches, to our knowledge yet, that have tested positive for COVID-19. And Mick and I were talking before the show. Mick has heard that this game is fully going to take place Saturday. But I also want to reiterate, there's other people that could be at risk. For example, what about Steve Sarkisian, who just had heart surgery a couple months ago? So, there's a lot of people who have to be careful about this. I think we all have to be careful about whether it's COVID-19, the flu, whatever it is. And, to hear Nick Saban, you'll hear that audio in just a minute. You can see he sounds rough, rough in terms of his voice not being the same. And I noticed this on Monday during the press conference. He was coughing. So, just something that I did notice, and kind of something I did pick up on, and we'll play that sound in just a minute. But Steve Sarkisian will be the interim head coach as Alabama proceeds to take on the Auburn Tigers. And you kind of look to what other coaches could be added to the field. And this year, the NCAA added a new rule. So if a coach does come in contact with COVID and has to isolate, you can add an analyst to the field. So you look to Alabama's analysts, and they have the best analysts in the entire country. They have Charlie Strong. They have Major Applewhite. They there's a couple other guys that I'm just kind of missing right now. They have Butch Jones. So there's guys on the staff that are analysts that can step on the field right now for the Alabama Crimson Tide. You got to think it's a defensive coach just because Nick Saban is a defensive-minded coach. So maybe look to Charlie Strong jumping on board for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Again, that's not confirmed, but Nick Saban said they're going to try to figure out that today.
Yeah, and one thing, and he's, I'm sure, going to talk about this in the teleconference as well, but he feels like he did a good job of social distancing even before he knew that he had COVID, that he's stayed 6 feet away from everyone. And so, I guess to me, Kyle, is that I feel pretty comfortable, like you said. Sark has been a head coach at Washington. He's been a head coach at USC. He was an offensive coordinator at USC back when they had their incredible run going. At Alabama, in the NFL, back to Alabama. I mean, like, as far as coaching goes, the thing where it's really going to affect Alabama are the times when, the Auburn Jesus type things where like crazy stuff happens, like they get that extra second in the first half and he's out arguing. I think that we saw this in the Georgia game. There's a certain comfort that Alabama has with Nick Saban on the sideline. But with all that said, I don't think it's going to affect the play on the field. At least I definitely hope it doesn't. And, I guess the most important thing is just his health right now. The game's going to go on from what I've been told. No one else has tested positive. Now they'll keep testing and, they'll have the other stuff that they do to figure out where the tracing is and all that stuff. But everyone there feels confident right now that the Iron Bowl will take place. And Nick Saban's been adamant about that too. So I guess the best thing to do now is just to go ahead and play the teleconference for those of you guys that didn't get a chance to hear it. And then we'll come back here and kind of get into what Nick Saban had to say. And again, how this would affect Alabama and how it would affect Nick Saban's health moving forward.
Yeah, so I just want to say with the sound as well, I just dubbed this from the SEC teleconference. So I'm gonna move it to a good spot for everybody to listen to. So this will be the audio from Nick Saban this morning. It just happened about 25 minutes ago. So I'm gonna pipe in that audio and then I'll get it lined up for you guys right now.
Okay, awesome.
Coach Nick Saban, the Crimson Tide will host Auburn.
Hello?
Coach, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for being with us. I hope you're well. Could you please just give us some comments on the news this morning and your team as you begin to prepare for Auburn?
Yeah, well, we've been preparing since Sunday. But, yeah, I was informed this morning that I had tested positive. It was a PCR test, which was different than, the false positive I had before. I don't really have any cardinal signs of the virus right now. I don't have a fever, no loss of taste or smell, no fatigue, no muscle aches. I informed the team this morning at 10 on a Zoom call. And I'm the only person in the whole organization who tested positive on this round. So I'm still going to do everything possible relative to our team for Saturday's game with Auburn. Participate in meetings and watch practice and all that from home in isolation, which I did before. And Sark will kind of oversee things in the building in my absence. But the last time I did this for 3 days, I absolutely did everything that from home that I did at the office. Just did it on Zoom. So, but anyway, the Auburn game's obviously a most important game, and we hated that this situation occurred. But as I've said many times before, you got to be able to deal with disruptions, in this year, and our players have been pretty mature about doing that. And so we just want to carry on the best we can. They've got a very good team, and they're playing really well right now. So it'll be a real challenge for us, and we just got to continue to have great preparation so we put our players in the best chance to have a chance to be successful.
Coach, your first question will come from David Pascal, the Chattanooga Times Free Press.
Hey, Nick, hope you get better soon and feel well. You said Sark will handle things. Does that mean he'll handle, how will the game day situation transpire Saturday as far as coaching roles?
Well, as it is right now, if you tested positive, you can have no communication with the sidelines, as I understand it. So, Sark's been a head coach for many years and very successful at it. He'll still continue to call the plays, and we won't really change anything other than the fact that, some of the administrative game day decisions he'll have to be involved in. So we really will discuss that more. We had discussed it, when I went through this 3-day hiatus before the Georgia game. We discussed exactly how we'll do that, but we'll be a little more specific about that later in the week.
And then one question about the actual game. Why are these teams so good at defensive touchdowns?
Well, you're talking about our defense and their defense?
Exactly. It seems like y'all get those in bunches and have been doing that again this year, and obviously that factored into last year's outcome.
Yeah. Well, they had 2 pick sixes last year, so that was a big deal in the game, and they've gotten like 4, I think, turnovers in the red zone that were big, for them this year. And I just think it's, all about players, staying disciplined, when they get in those situations and executing. And, when you execute, you give yourself the best opportunity to have a chance to make plays. So that's definitely, what they do. They're well coached. Kevin Steele does a really good job with them, and, their players play hard and they're disciplined and they execute well. And that's how you make plays.
All right, Mick, let's kind of digest some of that and kind of come back, and then we'll play the, more sound kind of moving forward. But again, if you're just joining us, Nick Saban has tested positive for COVID-19 and will miss this weekend's game against Auburn. Steve Sarkisian will be the interim coach as Alabama takes on the Auburn Tigers, and this is just all coming in. So we have the SEC teleconference, which we're going to break down, and here with Mick Gillespie to kind of provide the latest.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess it's just what it is. We dealt with this when he had the first test that turned out to be positive against Georgia. But one thing that he said in the teleconference today was, hey, I've been through this before pretty much, paraphrasing, and that, he can do a lot of the things that he would do anyway from home. Now, one of those things isn't being able to communicate with his team on the sideline. But when you're Alabama and you have the highest paid assistant who's a former head coach, and then you talked about all of the guys who are analysts that could slide in and help out, Alabama has some of the best and most experienced coaches in college football, maybe the best. I mean, they have a locker room of coaches that could go to other schools and would be an upgrade from their head coach, let alone just someone that can jump in and help out. You talk about Major Applewhite, who's been there and done that. Charlie Strong, who for a long time has been a great coach in the SEC and around. And then, Sark, who's done it all. I mean, he's been, the up and coming offensive guru. He's been a head coach at Washington, had success there, head coach at USC, and didn't get fired from USC for on-field issues. Like he had teams that won games. He's been an excellent offensive coordinator at Alabama, went to the NFL, and then came back. And since he's come back, it's been really magical. I mean, he's been such a great assistant coach for Sark. This is an opportunity for him again to, showcase his abilities as a head coach. And at the same time, for Alabama against Auburn, just forgetting about Nick Saban and his health, something that we're very concerned about. We want to see him recover quickly from this. Having Sark over there to be able to jump in, just the football side of things, I don't think it could be a better situation as far as Alabama having someone that could fill into the spot. I don't know. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, I think when you kind of look at Steve Sarkisian overall, I mean, this guy, brings so much to the table. I mean, he was, since he's continue to, build on Alabama's offense. I mean, look what he's done with the quarterbacks. And he came in as the offensive coordinator. And I think we've talked about this again and again, kind of the continued continuity and the fact that he is the highest paid assistant coach in the entire country. And I love this because I love comeback stories. I think in life, we love comeback stories because we've all gone through difficult times in our life. And Steve Sarkisian, what he went through at USC, we're all going to go through it. If you're grown, you know what we're talking about, right? There's hard times in life, and to be able to rebuild your career, rebrand yourself. He went to the Atlanta Falcons, then came back now at Alabama. I mean, this guy has done an extraordinary job. And, when you look to, potential guys that could even replace Nick Saban. And look, I know it's probably a long time away from Nick Saban hanging it up, but I think this could be a perfect guy. Now, is Steve Sarkisian going to stay around much longer because there's going to be a ton of schools coming after him just because he's a big money guy. He's a head coach. But if you look at coaches in waiting, I think if you're an Alabama Crimson Tide football fan, you like Steve Sarkisian. You like everything that he brings from an offensive standpoint. This guy's been a head coach before. You want head coaching experience, and you want a guy who's relatively young. I think Steve Sarkisian, he's somewhere in his mid-40s, so he has that experience. And with Nick Saban stepping out, he's he'll do everything game prep that he can for Alabama, but he can't have any type of communication with his team. I think it's 3 hours prior to kickoff. So you look to Steve Sarkisian to lead this program against Auburn, and it's an Iron Bowl. It's a 25-point spread for the Alabama Crimson Tide. I'm curious to see kind of how that number slides without Nick Saban being there on Saturday. Yeah,
one thing we saw when it looked like he wouldn't be there against Georgia was that the number started to shrink, like not having Nick Saban on the sideline seemed to affect the gambling market somewhat. But this is a 25-point spread. Auburn's banged up. Their top running back right now has what I'm being told is a bruised hip. And, we didn't see Bigsby much in the Tennessee game. Not sure if he's going to be there. That's a big part of their team. But they're also hurt on defense as well. They had a tough time stopping the run against Tennessee. And quite frankly, Tennessee didn't run the ball enough and take advantage of the lanes that were there. Alabama runs the ball as well as any team in the country behind that big offensive line. And I think we're going to see a lot of Najee Harris on Saturday. And that's not even counting the aerial attack that this team has, and also the focus to get to games like this and succeed where they didn't last year. Not having Nick Saban there, it obviously he's the best ever, right? I mean, it's definitely more comforting when he's on the sideline. But we knew going into the season, guys, that this was going to be different than any other year that we've ever experienced, and to be able to move forward and be able to have football and to have baseball and to have basketball and the NBA and then college basketball, which is starting tonight. There's going to be times where some of the best players aren't going to be there if we're going to play, right? The roster's going to have to go deeper. And right now, Alabama's losing for a game, maybe two. I mean, it just depends on how long it takes Nick Saban to get past COVID, the protocols and all that. But it could be 2 games that he's out. Other people are going to have to step up. That's just the way it is. You knew that kind of going in, and that's the price that we have to pay in 2020 to have football. On the bad side, but the good side is that they're saying that the effects of this are mild right now. I hope that continues for him. But as far as the Crimson Tide's concerned and going into this football game, I just don't think that it's really going to, once the ball's kicked off and you get into starting to play games, that it's going to affect this Alabama team a lot. And I'll say this, Kyle, for this particular team this year, this team has been super motivated, and they have also been very focused on what their job is and getting that job done. When Nick Saban took over in 2007, he talked about the process. I remember that first year, the second year in 2008, and then finally towards the middle of the season in 2009, when you really knew that this team had bought in. And since then, there's been a few years where I'd say, hey, maybe not on that same page, but there's been more than one. I mean, I'd say many teams that have totally gotten exactly what he wants out of them. This team has been at the top of that list. They do things the right way. They care about the details. They're not focused on the individual accolades, but they're a team. They've gotten better on defense. There's no problems off the field with this bunch. They've been led by a great quarterback in Mac Jones, who has had his own issues, and obviously he's matured not just as a football player, but as a leader. So I'm confident. And when you have players like Mac Jones and Najee Harris on offense, and then on defense, you have the guys that are there as well, including Moses. I feel like this team is set up to deal with a situation like this.
Yeah, and I think, like Michael White brings up a good question. If you're just joining us again, Nick Saban has tested positive for COVID-19. I think, this is a question that we all have right now. I mean, here's what I don't understand, and this is from Michael White inside the comment box. Only Coach Saban tested positive? Only Saban? What about everybody else? Nobody else tested positive. And I think people will be asking that question. And I think when you kind of know the intricacies of how programs work, how football teams work, I mean, these guys are together, right? These guys are always together. Nick Saban said that he's pretty much by himself. And maybe that has changed in terms of their, social distancing and contact tracing. And, be curious to see, over the next 24 hours if anything else does come up. But Mick, I mean, you got it from a good source that, things look promising for the continuation of Saturday's game. So I know a lot of people are trying to figure out, are more people going to have positive tests? We don't know that just yet, but from everything that you've heard so far, it looks like we're still good to go for Saturday.
Yeah, that's what I've been told. I mean, from, inside the building, that they feel very confident that that we're going to play football on Saturday, that Nick Saban is the only one that tested positive, that he has done a nice job of social distancing himself and staying 6 feet away. This is something that when you're the head coach, your time is in demand. You're going to come in contact with a lot of people, but that that having gone through this before with Georgia, the protocols that they've set up and put in place throughout the season itself, Alabama's done a tremendous job to keep everyone healthy and as best they can away from COVID. That's the feeling right now. I mean, look, all that can change if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that start testing positive as well. But this happens all the time. I mean, you go to your office in the workplace, one person gets it, you send them home, and no one else gets it. Sometimes everybody gets it. It's just it's really a crapshoot. The good thing is that the doctors in this country, the medical experts, have gotten a lot better at treating COVID. They've gotten a lot better at telling us the best way for us not to get COVID. And, I feel confident that he's going to be all right. We saw it with, the president of the United States had it and survived. So my fingers are crossed. Obviously I'm thinking a lot about Coach Saban, someone that we all love and admire so much, whether you're an Alabama fan or you just love college football. You want to see him get through this and do it in a, where he's not really dealing with a lot of the pain and circumstance that we've seen. But, just to give you an idea, my aunt and uncle live in Aliceville, and their neighbor died this week from COVID. So this is a real deal. It was an older man, in his 70s. Nick Saban's in that neighborhood at 69 right now. It can be very dangerous, and it's something that you have to take seriously when you get into that age range. And that to me personally is the thing where I'm like, okay, on the football side, I feel really good about Alabama going in against this Auburn team and the leadership and whether it's coaching or on the field. Then there's that other part where you kind of hold your breath because, Nick Saban means so much, not just to college football, but to the community and to Tuscaloosa and to Alabama. When I remember when the economy was bad there for a while, I sold my house in Tuscaloosa and I did really well with it. And I thought, Nick Saban has made this economy better, winning all these football games. He means so much. He does a lot of things in the community. He's really the face of the state and of college football. So, just hope that this one stays mild for him. And he says it's mild right now. Just pray that for him and his family, that no one else there catches it. And that, this is something that's just a bump in the road for him personally.
Let's play some more audio from the SEC teleconference. We left off at the 5-minute mark. So we'll continue to play that. I think it's like, the total length is 11 minutes. So we'll kind of let's play some more from Saban. There's some people that are just checking in again. If you're just joining us, Nick Saban tested positive for COVID-19 and will be missing this weekend's game against the Auburn Tigers. Steve Sarkisian to be the interim head coach during Nick Saban's departure. So let's play that continuation. I'm going to get it to that right spot. So just give me 1 second.
Coach Nick Saban, the Crimson Tide will host Auburn on Saturday at 2:30
Here, and when you exit, they're with you well.
Next is AP Statham of WHEP.
Good morning, Coach, and happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, and I hope you get better very soon. Coach, you're welcome. Coach, I wanted to know, what has Najee Harris meant to this program off and on the field?
Najee's outstanding person. Really a hard worker. Such a good example in terms of how he practices and how he goes about his work every day. And guy is a relentless competitor when the game comes in terms of how he competes and how he plays. And I think it really impacts and affects a lot of other people in the organization and on the team. And he's been a very consistent performer for us, and he's done a great job for us this year.
Thank you, Coach.
Mike Rodak of AL.com.
Yeah, Nick, you mentioned that you don't have any of the cardinal symptoms of COVID. The statement did say you have some mild symptoms. Are you able to say, what those symptoms are and when they started?
Just a little bit of maybe runny nose, but nothing really. I mean, I feel fine. I don't really have anything significant. I don't have a fever or any of the tests that they've, attempted to do. So, don't really have anything of significance.
This is Steve Moulton, WZZN.
Coach, certainly hope you get better soon. With this scenario now being in play, is there a coach that maybe who's not normally either on the sideline or in the box that may be given an opportunity on Saturday?
We haven't made that decision yet, so we kind of do it day by day. I have a coach that is not a full-time coach that I communicate with on the field, during practice, and so if there is something that he can communicate it to the coaches, so he's not really coaching the players. But we haven't made those decisions as of yet, so we'll, it's just really happened in the last, hour and a half.
And talking with Coach Pruitt last week about Auburn's offense and really how they look a little different from Gus to Chad, I'm wondering maybe what you've seen out of Auburn's offense and maybe a wrinkle or two, how they look different from last year to this year, Coach.
Well, they're, very, very good. They're doing a really good job of executing, scored a lot of points against LSU. And, once they got sort of going against Tennessee, they had a tough time stopping them. Very good on third down. They're doing, more things that are a little bit different, a lot more empty, still doing some of the same things. You can tell that there's still some influence there from Gus, and Gus is a really good coach. So the combination of these two guys, together, they put together some, really difficult things to defend, and it's very challenging, and their players are doing a really good job of executing. So, and the quarterback has, played extremely well, and this is a very good team.
There's more of that audio, and as you could tell, Nick said that he didn't have, kind of talked about the symptoms that he does have, said he doesn't have any, his symptoms are just mild. Let's leave it at that. And then they asked him about, another coach kind of stepping onto the field, because the NCAA does allow this particular year for an analyst to step on the field. And you got to think it's a defensive coach that could step on the field, maybe a Charlie Strong type guy that does add another defensive coach to the staff. Again, that's not confirmed, and Saban said that they hadn't even made that decision. But if you're just joining us, Nick Saban did test positive for COVID-19 and will be out against the Auburn Tigers. And if you kind of look at the timeline period, it's a 10-day period from let's say he's tested today, which will take us, if you look at the calendar window and, you kind of look at how everything's going, that would potentially put him in, to the later end of next week. So, this is kind of all developing, and I know more questions are going to, people are going to have more questions, but right now we know that Nick Saban will not be coaching against the Auburn Tigers. Here with Mick Gillespie, kind of to break it all down and provide what we know at this point after some significant news.
Yeah, and then Kyle, the thing is, he's got to get over it now. Like this isn't like the contact tracing where you're just trying to wait out the 10 days. It used to be 14. He's got to get over COVID. So, he's got to, beat it. And that could take a couple days. It could take a couple weeks. I had a friend that if you watch the Bama Insider Show with me, the guy that does the beer reviews, he had it, and it took him 4 weeks to really get over that. And he's a 40-year-old guy. So, it just depends on, each individual and, and kind of what their body is able to deal with. This is a weird, and like any other, really bad illness. One person can get the flu and it's a day or two, and then you get it and you're sick as a dog for weeks. Right. So we just got to hope that the symptoms stay for Nick very mild. He's able to get over it quickly. And, he's going to have great medical attention, being that, he's the head coach at Alabama, and they've done a lot. The medical community has been fantastic in trying to figure out ways to combat COVID. When it first hit, we were just so surprised by it. I think that, just looking across the country, a lot more people have gotten it and a lot more have survived. But you get up into that age range, I've said this before, you start getting into that 70 age range, really anything over 55, it becomes dangerous. And then you get up in the 75 and it becomes very, very dangerous. And so the good thing, though, is that Nick Saban's very healthy. He's very active as well. I don't know what his medical history is, if he has pre-existing conditions, but, maybe for what was it, hip surgery that he had or knee surgery? Yeah. That he really hasn't been someone that has, since we've had him at Alabama, has been someone that hasn't been sick that much. He just seems like he has rocket fuel for blood. He's just constantly getting after it. And, people have talked about, how many more years, he has and all that stuff. To me, it's like he's just been so healthy and inspired, and this love for football that he has and this focus that he has, that, you just feel like he's going to coach for a long time more. And so, fingers are crossed there. But you talked about it before, and I think that when you take that personal aspect of it and you just talk about the football aspect of it, if I'm Alabama, I got to feel good about this program that he's built. And I think that its ability going into, as he said, this is the biggest game of the year, and that's because it's Alabama Auburn. If it was any other game, say, yeah, it's a big game because it's the next game. But this is the game in this state, right? And you can throw the records out and you can forget about the point spreads. It's the team that's going to go onto the field Saturday, make the least amount of mistakes, turn the ball over the least, play together as a team, stay focused. That's going to win this football game. There's not a lot of upsets in the Iron Bowl. It does happen some, but if you're going to win, normally it takes a huge effort to do that. So, I think Alabama is going to come out Saturday football wise and be ready to go. That's just my feeling.
All right, we got some. I was just kind of paging through some audio that we have kind of, categorized from the past years. And here's and we've talked about this kind of moving towards the Iron Bowl about Alabama and Auburn. And I think, as Mick and I talked about, one of the things is redemption, and not only for the team, but for Mac Jones. This was Mac Jones' first big gauge on first big time on a large stage, threw 2 interceptions that were costly. And here's Mac Jones after that game. And you can kind of tell, from where he's gone from there to now. And I think that's really inspired him. And I think he comes out guns blazing. I think Sarkeesian comes out super aggressive. And I think overall that we're going to see a heavy dose of Najee Harris as well, because if you looked at that game last year, Mick, I mean, Najee Harris was playing on fire.
Yeah.
And I had some audio real quick from last season from Mac Jones.
5 years old 100,000 times, and I missed the throw to Jerry, and they kicked me off and scored. So it's a bad throw, and it's my fault.
The 100-yard one, was that the play similar to that 2009 play?
I don't even know. Like, I should have thrown it away, and I could have made the tackle. I'm not fast enough to get the guy, but it is what it is. I think it was fine. I think really it was the other guys around me. They never were down on themselves, and when I see them confident in me, it's all good, and just play each play and, fight, keep fighting. And that's what we did, and I'm really proud of the offensive line and the running backs and the receivers and the defense. Everyone fought, and we just came up short.
You kind of look at, the growth of Mac Jones, and that's kind of been one of the topics that we've talked about this entire week going into this game. And I think Mac Jones, what he's done, I know he didn't have his best game against Kentucky, but I mean, you look at a guy like this, a proven leader, and you start to look at your leadership now, with Nick Saban being out for the Iron Bowl, who is going to be a leader? Who is going to step up? And I think it resonates from the coaches, but also to the players. And when you look to this offense, there are leaders on this team. You have Mac Jones, you have Najee Harris, and everybody saw the hilarious interview with Najee Harris from yesterday. But I think that's cool, that's calm, that's collected. That is who Najee Harris is. Those are the leaders. You look at Landon Dickerson, and I think on the defensive side, you have Patrick Surtain, guys that are continuing to step up. I mean, everybody has been pointing fingers at the defense, but the way that they played over the last several games has been trending upward. So without Nick Saban, now is a time you look to your leaders and you look to who wants to continue this lineage of this program. How far do we want to get? Auburn's going to come with it. We all know that, but I think the leadership really steps up on this team, and it all starts with Mac Jones right there.
Hey, guys, thanks for joining us today. He's Kyle Henderson, the managing editor of BamaInsider.com. I'm Mick Gillespie. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. This wasn't scheduled. Obviously, we had no idea that Nick Saban was going to test positive for COVID, but we wanted to get on the air here quickly, play some of the audio from the press conference, talk to you guys about everything that's going on. And we really appreciate the super chats as well. From all of you guys that have been a big supporter. We love the comments in the chat room. Later tonight, Kyle, you do your call-in show, so you guys can kind of join Kyle later on tonight and talk more about this. Kyle, I want to get back to the interview that you played there. That's a really good piece of audio, and to me, it shows, like you mentioned, the growth that Mac Jones has had at the quarterback spot. He looked like a kid last year, and he looks like a man this year. In that interview, I'm looking at him, and he's like, I should have done this. I wish I would have done that. This year the guy's been like absolutely like blinders on. He throws the football away, which to me has been the most impressive thing. And when I compare him and Tua, and I love both guys really, at the quarterback spot, I always felt like Tua was the most amazing talent that I ever saw in that spot in an Alabama uniform. But it would be frustrating when he would always try to make something out of nothing, and that ended up getting him hurt against Mississippi State, right? This year, Mac Jones has, and maybe it was learning from last year's Iron Bowl, throw the ball away. It's okay. Get up and tackle the guy if you throw an interception, give your defense a chance. Mac Jones this year has been someone that deserves recognition as far as the Heisman Trophy goes. Said, hey, Kentucky wasn't his best game. I thought he did a really good job. Maybe he wasn't as accurate. He was a little bit rusty after all those weeks off, but he still led that offense. And the confidence and leadership that he's had this year has set him up for this opportunity now to beat the Auburn Tigers. And when you're a quarterback at Auburn or you're a quarterback at Alabama, there's a lot of pride in winning this football game. And I've talked about it before. He spent a couple of years working with Jay Barker, the 92 national championship quarterback. And when you talk to him about his days at Alabama beating Auburn, the game they didn't win that he quarterbacked, he got hurt, like the rest of those games, there is just so much pride in winning this football game. And that's the way that it is in this state. Max from Jacksonville, but he's been around long enough in that uniform to know, including the performance that he had last year, which was good and bad, but it wasn't winning. What it takes to win a game like this. I think that he's going to have a tremendous Saturday. I can't wait for kickoff, and I think all of us just have our fingers crossed that this that this COVID case is just Nick Saban, and that it's not going to affect the game. But there's a lot of cancellations and postponements in college football, so they're going to be looking closely between here and Friday, and then Saturday, on guys and coaches and anyone else that ends up with COVID. But again, and this is what I was told earlier today, got a good source on this, that they feel very confident that no one else is that no one else is going to get COVID, that no one else is tested positive, that Nick Saban did a really good job not only preaching social distancing but also doing social distancing. So it's hard to say where he got it from. But I mean, how many people would you really know where they got it from? I mean, it's like anything else, the important thing is that they get Nick Saban healthy, and that, we get this football team ready for Saturday.
Yeah. And kind of as we head to kind of the end of this breaking news update, a lot of people are asking if Saban's going to be tested again like last time against Georgia. Completely different, because that was a false positive, whereas this looks to be a positive because he does have symptoms. And Nick Saban said he does have symptoms. And it looks like, he told the team this morning kind of about everything, obviously not in person, but being isolated, and he will be out this weekend. So it's completely different than the last time against Georgia. I know it's, there's a lot of questions to go in this. So we'll come back with any type of breaking news. And of course, we'll have the call-in show tonight, Wednesday night, probably around 6 p.m. Central Time. I'll take your calls. I don't think, Saban clearly won't have his Wednesday night press conference. So you can re-listen to the SEC teleconference right here on our YouTube channel. I just posted that in its entirety. And then, of course, you got Alabama basketball tonight taking on Jacksonville State. So a lot of stuff going on. And, of course, tomorrow being Thanksgiving. So, we hope you have a wonderful time with your family and your loved ones that you're able to see. And, we'll be praying for Nick Saban, and hopefully he gets better sooner than later. What else you got, Mick? Anything else, buddy, before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just want to say again just how impressed I am with the Bama Insider community and how quick you guys are to, jump on here and hang out with us and comment and be a part of the show and the programs that we put out. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. We appreciate that a lot. Subscribe to the channel. The growth that the channel's had has been amazing. And that's how, Kyle's been able to take this thing, add people like me and others, that we can do a lot more shows and programming. And a big part of that is just subscribing to the channel and giving the thumbs up. And all those super chats, we appreciate those a lot as well. But you guys are awesome. And I want to remind you that we got a bunch of stuff. We're really starting to ramp up our podcasts. With the holidays here, I know a lot of the regular radio shows that you guys listen to in the sports market, the hosts are off, and you're like, hey, I'm still driving, or I'm still working out, and I want some new content. Go to the Bama Insider podcast, channel. You can do that on Apple, Spotify. We got, one that we put out yesterday on the floor. It's a preview of Alabama basketball. Going to have that all season. We're also going to do more with football. We'll play this as well. That's all on there. It's going to be a lot of great content, and we appreciate you guys a lot.